Whoop, boop, 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 boop. What could we be doing today? We'll be getting at something you say, but we're not too sure if you'll know what the something is, yo. So here we go, getting ready to do the show. We're about to get started. If you see me up on your screen, just hold on. I'm about to get green. It's about to get real. The client is here. We're about to go for lives. I know what's going on. We just gotta get this show started. We gotta get it all synced up. Come on, broses, let's get it going. We're almost there. You see my arms failing, frailing. I'm going. Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to 3D Changes Perspectives. This is another hidden episode. We didn't want to say what was going on. We just kind of wanted you to come in and find out. Oh, got to double up on sounds. But yes, we are live and we're getting started right now. So before I go any further, let's go ahead and I want to thank the sponsor, roundlyx.com. Go ahead and jump over to roundlyx.com and use the code Changes Perspectives to get a free $15 when you sign up today. Getting the chat up, and then I think we're just going to go ahead and see if we can get that rolling intro to work this time. Alright, let's try it. 1, 2, let's try this. Wait, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Alright. Well, that is what's up. Love the intro. Got to get this system working better, and we definitely will. Thank you again, RoundlyX.com, for sponsoring us in the network so we can have this awesome show today. So what we got going on today is some fun stuff for everybody. We're going to have a new person coming in and jump in and say hi and everything. So here what we're going to do is we're just going to bring in, as soon as they get here, a friend, Mr. Iraq, the DJ from the D Shift podcast, and we're going to bring him in so he can talk to us about things cryptocurrency related. And the reason why I bring him in is he's got a lot of perspectives and thoughts and things that most people nowadays wouldn't even consider. I guess you could say it's a little bit old school thought processes and stuff, but it's the stuff new people should be hearing. And all right, let's see. Hey, Frank, are you ready?
Yo, yes, sir.
Oh my, that's. I think we just got the image loaded in. Boom. Awesome. Now, do you want me to show
Try it again.
your video or your picture?
Can you see me now?
Yes, sir. I do see you.
You can show my video. I'm not on any federal watch list, to my knowledge, anyway.
All right. So, thank you for coming on. I'm gonna
You
see
never
if I can
know. It
get
might
the.
actually make me popular.
Well, I really appreciate you coming in for us today. And you do the podcast, the D Shift, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, when you
Yeah, it's
go,
a show I do twice a week on Tuesday
okay,
time on BitcoinTalkRadio.com.
that is what's up. And so, what kind of stuff do you talk on there?
I've been covering a lot of SEC stuff lately, mostly because they really have no business trying to regulate cryptocurrencies, and I like to repeatedly tell people that basically they're whatever authority that they have been exercising has been assumed and not really real.
And that's something I can definitely agree with. Um, So when you go on and you're talking about like the SEC, for example, I think that was one of the main things that we wanted to bring you on. Is you had some big comments on how the SEC is messing with or changing the crypto scene, right?
Yeah, they well, it's not just the SEC. There's been several organizations pretty much since the beginning of crypto that have sought to craft the narrative to make it more amenable to existing regulatory frameworks and new ones that they've been kind of sneaking into place behind the scenes.
Hmm, I see. Now, to be honest, I think a lot of people didn't ever notice that kind of scenario with the SEC and the government's uh, dogs, so to speak. You know,
Oh, would you like to know how early? Would you like to know how early it got started in Bitcoin?
absolutely.
Okay, well, I call it mimetic drift. And what it is that over time, they swap one term for another term on the way to the term that they really, really want. Okay, so like
Hmm.
in the beginning with Bitcoin, we didn't even have transaction fees. Okay, and as a matter of fact, when they first showed up, they were called minor donations. And see, I think the reason we started with no transaction fees is because Satoshi knew that eventually transaction fees would become a permission if allowed to just go willy nilly, or if they experienced any artificial constraint, things like the block size limit.
Hmm.
But anyway, so it started off as minor donations, and it was a charitable act, right?
Yeah.
And then the next stop on the mimetic drift was minor tips. Okay,
Hmm.
so now it's not just a charitable act, it's an acknowledgement that you're providing a service. It's a gratuity. Okay. And so the next stop on there was minor fees. Okay, so now you're not only acknowledging that they're performing a service, you're acknowledging what their role is as well. And so again, this is another step on the mimetic drift.
Hmm.
The last step, the intended step, is transaction fee. And see, transaction fee doesn't tell you who it is anymore. And you can just as easily apply a transaction fee if you're a validator as if you're a miner.
True.
And this is really important too, because later on, they intend to get rid of the term miner entirely and substitute another word for it, which currently they're working on validator. Now, you and I both know that there are validators on all kinds of L2 projects, there's validators on proof of stake projects, but Bitcoin doesn't have validators. It has nodes. Well, I mean, it does on L2 bullshit, but that's L2 bullshit. It's not Bitcoin. But it does have miners. And again, if you go back and you look at Coinbase's suit against the SEC, they do not call them miners. They do not refer to miners anywhere in there, even though they describe the actions that miners actually perform on the Bitcoin network. So, again, this is one of those places where they are replacing a term with another term that they already have plenty of regulatory frameworks for and plenty of legalese concerning. And they're trying to substitute miners with that term, so that everything that you currently do within crypto is encapsulated within their existing frameworks via the vocabulary.
Gotcha. Well, I
So,
have to admit, no, absolutely. That's the kind of stuff we want to hear because people, honestly, like me and you have gotten in on it about the minor fee versus like minor tip and all that before, and I absolutely respect your opinion on it because you're not wrong. It is something that's been slowly been brought in, and I think your perspective on why is what's more important than like like why I fight against it or so to speak. Because when you look at it from your perspective, you're actually making a lot of sense. It's basically, they're purposely changing the narrative through language to change the minds of the people, right? And we're actually seeing that nowadays in other areas as well. So I think that your perspective, it definitely makes a lot of sense, and something we're seeing people already in the chat having some sentiments to agree with, um, including they said facts, no basis. I think they mean no bias. Um, so yeah, bro. Now when it comes to cryptocurrencies, is there any specific coins or currencies that you prefer to use?
Well, I think anything that can be used as money, if it can be used as money, I consider potentially valuable within the crypto space. And so basically, it comes down to, can you mine it? Can you download all of the software for it natively? And can you use it without a third party?
And that's a
And
good
if
list.
it doesn't meet those criteria, just kind of like shit can it and move on.
Absolutely. All right, now that is a good setup for considering which ones to use. That means that you don't really care about specifically which ones you use as long as they meet your terminal view, right?
Absolutely. If they hit your utility and they do it right and they do it the best they can for you, that's really your controlling criterion, man. I mean, forget about, does the SEC give a shit about it? Fuck that. Fuck all that. Those fucking people are end users just like you. Okay. So consider, what software does the job best for you. Can you mine it? Is it a decent community? Are they a bunch of assholes? Are they trying to rip people off? I mean, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you can select. It's part of your risk tolerance here in crypto to consider the scamminess of the people you're doing business with.
Absolutely. Now I got to get your opinion. What is your
Go for it.
opinion on XRP?
XRP is not a security. It is a centralized corporate coin, and there's no getting around that. I mean, they purposely, I want to say they purposely started as a corporate coin specifically to test that taboo. Now, whether that was purposeful in that they are really banksters and they're trying to set a court precedent, I don't know. But I do know this, that Garlinghouse and et al. Are playing the keeps. If they ever started as just something to get a court precedent, okay, whatever, that definition like came and went as far as like what XRP and Ripple Labs actually are. Okay, now they're actually servicing banks internationally and shit. So it's like, okay, well, we were poking the bear before. Now we're a major corporate entity, and we should probably do something to defend ourselves. you know,
Yeah.
and so like XRP, it's not a security. It was never sold as an investment contract. It was never sold as a share in something else or a share in its profits or a quarterly. None of that. Okay, they started with the pre-mined coins, so there isn't even an investment contract on future coins concerned here. It is, you're buying XRP, units of XRP. You might as well be buying Federal Reserve notes because
Okay.
that's how much money it is.
Well, heck, that is a heck of perspective on that one. Especially when you're referring it to as like Federal Reserve notes, because the amount of value that's there or wealth that's there, right? That is what's up. Now, okay, so I think we've talked about this before, like Bitcoin Dark, like the various Bitcoin forks besides the main three.
What about it?
Is there any of the sub forks of Bitcoin that you think might actually be better than the main three?
Hmm. Pardon me. Um, I haven't really been paying attention to a lot of the forks. I remember the spurt of forks that we had, like Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin Black, Bitcoin Pizza, or whatever the fuck that was. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that was a further test of the altcoin thesis. Basically, is it still operational? Does it still have miners? Does it still work as money? That's basically the depth of my concern when it comes to a coin. And I don't really care if it's Bitcoin or a derivative of Bitcoin or a derivative of a derivative of a derivative of a Bitcoin. You know, that's all immaterial. doesn't have users, doesn't have a community, can you use it as money? You know?
Now I have to admit, you pretty much got what I was heading towards, the derivative of derivatives, because I was just about to say, all right, now tell me that there is an altcoin out there like Litecoin or Dogecoin that you just can't stand. I know there is. I know there is. Everyone's got one. They just can't stand. And I want to know why. Why you can't stand it.
Well, I don't know that there is one. I will say that I'm not a big fan of stable coins. Uh, I consider them all to be a scam because you do not tell the market what your thing is worth. The market tells you what it's worth. And there's no way to maintain a peg without continually manipulating it in real time, where you're burning supply or you're taking supply out of circulation or you're reintroducing new supply or you're creating new coins. I mean, these are all things that affect the inflation rate and deflation rate of your coin, in real time. And like I said, you have to do that, in order to retain a peg for things like USDT or USDC. And that's completely antithetical to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. And I want to say monetary theory, because again, you do not tell the market what your shit is worth. The market tells you what it's worth.
Absolutely. Well, dang, bro. I really did not expect to hear that because I don't think we've ever talked about stablecoins before, have we? Um, and stablecoins is one of those ones I absolutely can't stand. You know, it it's just like for me, it's just like Nano or some of those other like proof of stake coins that have buy only options. You can only buy to get in. There's no other way to obtain the coin. Um, and yeah, so I feel in the same boat as that. Now, how do you feel about those buy only coins we have to purchase to get it? You can't mine it.
You might as well be buying Visa credits, and it's not even as good as that if you don't have a market that you can flip it around as money in. So, I mean, um, you know, the, the crypto space is a wild and varied place. You're going to find a lot of things here, things that shouldn't exist, things that, are pretty illegal, and then things that are wonderful and things that are going to change tomorrow. But stable coins is not one of them.
Yes, yes, I think we can all agree. Yeah. Woo! Thank you. Oh man. I hear so many people in the communities, they be all like, oh, it's all about the stable coins or the tokens or, the coins made on top of other chains. And I do see some use cases for some of those, like some of those utility styles, on native chains. I want to say it was like one of those ones they were using for trading, like Anchor or something. Remember those kinds of tokens? I saw, okay, so I see use for that. But nowadays with like Bitcoin, all these meme coins, people are just boating into them or aping into them as they're calling them nowadays, and they're aping hard over these weird, obscure tokens that are just simply rehashes of the Ethereum token on Ethereum. So,
Yeah.
what do you got to say? Like, do you use any like sub chain tokens or anything?
Well, my experience of sub-chain tokens is that their publishers can die at any time, and there's there's nobody that's like maintaining consistency on them. I'll give you an example. Is oh shit, what was that coin? Game token.
Ah,
Okay,
yes.
it was very volatile. A lot of fun to trade on Bittrex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at one point they were their own coin, okay, and they ran it and everything was fine, and then something changed in the background where they lost their devs or some shit like that, and they turned themselves into an ERC20 token. Okay, well, they didn't bother to let Coinami know the differential between the two, and so when I got my coins off of Bittrex, I tried to take them to Coinami Wallet. Well, because they don't have their own chain anymore and they're a fucking ERC20 contract, that's two different wallets. Now I need like MetaMask or some shit like that, and I didn't know that. And so I tried to download the coins to my Coinami wallet, and they ended up getting spaced. And so I was at a pretty healthy chunk of coin there. I had planned on continuing to trade them, off of Bittrex, and now they're gone entirely. And it's because between when they were put on Bittrex and when they were put on Coinami, there was this disconnect, where like the community wasn't getting to Coinami and saying, hey, yo, now we're an ERC20 token, you know. And because of that, I ended up losing a significant amount of money, you know. So I don't really approve of L2 tokens because no matter what you do to make your L2 token more wonderful than the other, the fucking transactions that you do to settle on chain all sit in the same fucking queue.
Mm-hmm.
People bitch about quote unquote congestion. Congestion on any proof of work network or proof of stake network for that matter is due to artificial constraints embedded into it specifically to create a fee market, i.e., to extort you for time. And it's completely antithetical to everything Bitcoin. I mean, I'm convinced that when the block size limit was switched from implicit to explicit on Bitcoin at 1 megabyte, that Satoshi was probably dead by then. Because the fact of the matter is if you read through the white paper and you understand what the man is saying in the white paper, and then you reflect on the effect of the block size limit and putting it at 1 megabyte, you understand that that block size limit has now turned transaction fees into a permission on a quote unquote permissionless network. So, like I said, not everybody. I mean, like there were more than one person that had access to Satoshi's accounts, so they could have been making notes as Satoshi without Satoshi knowing. And there's also been the stipulation that Satoshi was multiple people. Well, here's a stipulation for you that fits along both of those lines: is that Satoshi released Bitcoin, everything was fine for maybe 6 months. Greg Maxwell, whatever, went to the CIA. CIA fucking killed Satoshi, and then went to Greg and said, "Hey, yo, you're gonna edit Bitcoin to where it does this, okay?" And he said yes because he didn't want to die either. And so there you go. I mean, and don't put that on Greg Maxwell specifically. I'm just saying that name because that's one of the people that had like original contact with Satoshi.
Satoshi, yeah. That's a pretty good theory because like we've talked about the block size debate many times, and we have come to the conclusion multiple times where the only statement that we know for sure that was from Satoshi is in the white paper, which was block size should only be considered in the future as needed. It shouldn't be something worried about natively about on chain. And then later on, we do see him talk throughout like Bitcoin talk forums and other places other than IRCs where he says something or anything. And I think the only other thing that was ever mentioned was just like, I think it was on Bitcoin Talk Forum where he was like, I, I don't want to have anything to do with this conversation or this conversation isn't or is above me or something like that. And I think that's the point in time when you're saying that's when Satoshi probably most likely no longer either was in the project or you know living. And I can't refute that. Like that's actually non-refutable, which means that there is logic behind it. And to be honest with you, bro, like it seems really plausible. It makes a lot of sense too because like why would Bitcoin get so much adoption if there wasn't some government agency behind it? Like people have said those kinds of things before, right?
No. I think you're getting off in the weeds when you start to talk about that kind of stuff. What you have to consider is what Bitcoin's trajectory was from its origin point till about 2012. Okay, because that right there, that is probably the most organic period of adoption that Bitcoin had ever experienced. up until that point when we were getting new vendors and whatnot, these
Mm-hmm.
people were doing things like hosting nodes. They were hosting a miner on site so that they had direct connection to the network. They weren't talking about, we're going to go through BlackRock and BlackRock's going to buy their Bitcoin from Coinbase and Coinbase is
Mm.
going to get theirs from this mining pool. None of that bullshit. Those are all third parties now. You're off back into Trustville.
Right.
Okay. But like I said, if you go back to like 2011, 2012, and you watch the videos, they're talking about direct connections where a store or a business was integrating Bitcoin directly. They weren't going through additional parties. And so, like, if you look even now, the anybody who's like claiming to give you some sort of payment service and they had to get licensed and regulated and all that shit, none of them are handling the coins themselves. Like if you read through BlackRock's ETF proposal,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to be hosting any coins at all. They're going to be trading ETFs that are collateralized by coins that somebody else is going to be holding for them.
Mm. That's a good point. Hmm. So
It's
that
so
goes back into
crazy.
the zero reserve banking systems then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the reasons why I think that, like, I've got multiple scenarios concerning FTX. I've got three primary theses as to what exactly happened there. And two of them involve FTX being fully legit, fully solvent, and everything was wonderful right up until they started getting attacked by the US government.
Cool. Well, so I have to ask this. A, it came in as a comment, and B, it makes a lot of sense, especially with what we're just now saying. Would you say, or could someone say, stablecoins are disguised CBDCs?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. USDT is like a prototype for the CBDC.
That is what's up.
I
Now, go on.
well, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask you to clarify more of what you mean.
Oh, I could go on for days concerning Tether. Okay. I think Tether is run by the Federal Reserve or they are a proxy for the Federal Reserve, like Deltec Bank is a
Mm-hmm.
proxy for the Federal Reserve. And the reason I say that is because if you go through the legalese and you study the function of USDT, you come to two conclusions. Number one, it's a US dollar backed security. Number two, it's an unregistered security. Well, I mean, number two, it's counterfeiting.
Mm.
Okay. Like, because legally, it's counterfeiting. They circulate them as dollars, they use them as dollars, they value them as dollars. It's fucking counterfeiting, digital counterfeiting. Okay. But the unbacked, unlicensed U.S. dollar based securities, that's because they claimed at one point that they had one-to-one dollars. For every tether they put out in circulation, they supposedly had a dollar. Well, I don't know about you, but me, if somebody tells me that they have a bank account that's got like 10 billion US dollars in it, and the 10 billion USDT that they're circulating is collateralized by that, that tells me that each and every single one of those tokens is basically a share of the sum occupying that bank account. It's a share of it. I mean, I don't know. And plus, it's an investment contract because it's not an actual dollar. It's a representation of a dollar. All the terms, what it's worth,
Mm-hmm.
that's all implicit in the the definition of what tether is. You have no guarantee that there's actually a dollar somewhere in a bank account that the tether you have is representing. You have no guarantee of that. You've just got the implicit statement that Tether is a US dollar backed fucking stablecoin that and go through their terminology and they tell you specifically that this is a collateralized unit, meaning that it has either US dollars backing it or US dollar backed something backing it. i.e., it's a share, it's an investment contract.
Absolutely. Now we just got someone in here saying that you said the open secret they are counterfeiting, and I think that really is an open secret about some of these different coins we're seeing on like Ethereum for specifics. Um, and I say that because there's a lot like you've seen the bin token, right? I'm gonna go to that one specifically. The guy created the
I
token
have
and it went exploded real fast.
What was it?
Bin token, BEN.
No, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, well, it's I'm sure you remember some of the old ones like what was it, pump token and scam token and all those other. Yeah, yeah. And so, would you say that producing one of those pump and dumps is an equivalent to type of counterfeiting because they're specifically
Mm,
using it to get cash out of the people?
no,
So, would
no.
that be the same as like a ringleading?
You know, it's tough to say, especially if there's functional code behind it. Like it's so what it's a pump and dump. But the thing is it actually a currency? Like, does it have miners? Does it have a network? I mean, because those are the things that make it quote unquote work as money. Make any of these things work as money is the fact that they have a live network that's updating it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not any of these things, if it's like an ERC20 token or something like that, no, it's entirely different.
Okay, all right. Now it kind of sounded like you were hinting at that old crypto note token, the one where the crypto miner, the guy who created it, scammed everybody. He pre-mined without telling people, and then they switched it over and made Monero out of it. Um, and so that kind of like hostile takeover of Monero. Monero, I don't think people realize has been hostilized what 3 times now. We had the original hostile takeover from original dev to new dev. Then we had the hostile takeover when Fluffy Pony got arrested, and then we had the hostile takeover by the community after, well, technically as Fluffy Pony left to take it back over from the, I guess you would say police. I can't remember which government it was that had control
Is
over
Fluffy
it.
back?
I
Is Fluffy back?
He's not back in. Like he stepped away from Monero, but he does still randomly submit code to it.
Huh.
But he's actually put
Yeah.
himself down as if like me, like I'm the same level of dev as he is right now. We both have to put in through the Git hub system exactly the same. He doesn't have any specialized things anymore.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah. And where I started talking about that Tether is a proxy for the Federal Reserve. The reason why I say that is, you come to those two conclusions about what Tether is, right? But they've existed all this time. They've existed since 2017, and they've never been arrested. I mean, sure, they've been taken to court a few times, but they've never been arrested. Now, I mean, if you or I was doing what Deltec is doing, we would be detained by the DOJ on counterfeiting charges, and those are like federal felony kind of charges.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we're doing it as an unregistered exchange, again, the SEC would invent a fucking enforcement division just to come and get us. All right, but they're not touching Tether. They're not touching Deltec. They're not touching Bitfinex. They're
Mm-hmm.
not touching iFinex. So this tells you that the two are hand in hand. Okay, and same thing with USDC. USDC is run by Circle, which is owned by Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is one of the 13 governing banks of the Federal Reserve System. So there you go. They're a proxy for the Federal Reserve,
Okay. Heck yeah, bro.
and that's why they don't suffer any federal charges.
Well, to be honest, that makes more sense than what other people had said, which was they were paying the government. Um, because I honestly don't think they had the money in the first place to pay the government.
They are the government. Oh,
It,
dude, USDC is, to me, it represents such a threat to both fiat and crypto. Okay, because I believe that the collateral for USDC, if it is anything at all, it is commingled funds from Goldman Sachs's investment branch.
Okay. I
Meaning that,
can you go
go
more
ahead.
into that? I want to hear more about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Is that well? So you've got Goldman Sachs. They've got a portfolio. It's worth X amount of dollars, right?
Uh huh.
Well, they put out USDC in circulation through Circle, right? But what they're counting is as the collateral for it, I believe, is Circle counting assets that are owned by Goldman Sachs clients as collateral for the USDC that they're putting out. So, like, think FTT token and Alameda, what the relationship there was,
Oh yeah.
except it's Goldman Sachs and USDC.
Hmm. Okay. Now, do you think that there's a bigger chance for a similar type of fall? Or do you think there's a less chance for a similar type of fall because they have a bigger client, so to speak, above them or
Oh, I,
behind them?
I think it's just a bigger chance to fall, basically. I mean, and the thing of it is I think that is probably the only exit for it. That the clients for Goldman Sachs will either liquidate their portfolios or move their money around. Then the collateral's not going to be there to cover for USDC through Circle, and then they'll experience their major devaluation event. I used to think that the threat would be Ripple, because Ripple ostensibly was acting as an intermediary for those kind of potentials for commingling to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I thought that the major fiat slash crypto collapse would be facilitated by them. Instead, now I think that it's going to be stable coins. And the reason I say that is not only what we've already discussed so far, but I was listening to a podcast somewhere else, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were talking about how they're an institutional grade investor and that they have clients that are creating their own stable coins to be trading between one another instead of going through ACH or any kind of wire or whatever. They are supposedly creating a stable coin that they circulate amongst one another, and they've supposedly done this 9 times already.
Huh.
Now, I don't understand the utility of the stablecoin after you've done the transfer, or I mean, I don't know if they're actually maintaining them as coins after that. But it only takes one of these things to get out into the wild, and it will happen at one point or another. These people are going to say, well, we trade it with A and B as US dollars, and C knows about it. And so, maybe we can involve him in it. And next thing you know, they're going to be having obligations on a third party that the other two parties don't know about. And that's going to open up the possibility for your your zero collateral situation to become really fucked.
Oh yeah. I mean, basically, you're saying that your collateralized party could walk away without anybody realizing it.
Pretty much, and the cascading effect after that. I mean, we're still experiencing that just from the transition to crypto for some people. That we have created a major disruptions in the financial world. Okay, like, and I was just talking about this on my show the other day that, like, if you take things like wire transfers like ACH, and you take the Swift network and all those networks, banks, they are used to handling these millions and millions and billions of dollars transactions with their hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of transaction fees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If those transactions aren't happening on those networks, then those fees aren't being paid to anybody. And if those fees, if there's anything that's dependent upon those fees, now they're going to go lacking. And that's a cascade that's rippling right now throughout the entire financial fucking industry. Okay, is that these fees that people were depending upon? Okay, where this quarter we made 70% of our money came from these fees. And then the next quarter, they switched to doing an internal stable coin, and now those fees aren't there. What the fuck are we going to do for 70% of our capital this quarter?
That's a good point. Well, dang, bro.
And like I said, that cascade is going on in the background.
Yeah, I'm sure that's always going to end up flopping on end users, but I'm just thinking like if it ends up being large amounts of the sum of being transferred, then the number of participants is probably somewhat equivalent to that. So if it's like you said 70%, then that means there's a chance 70% of the people holding will never receive anything for holding.
Well, and we're talking about, I'm talking about specifically within fiat, is that there are fiat players, okay, in the legacy banking system that are switching to using crypto,
Yeah,
and
no.
it's like they're not bothering to tell everybody downstream, hey, by the way, next quarter we're going to be using something else.
Oh
So
man.
this is basically like a tidal wave of cascading nonsense that he's really talking about, and I kind of like shrivel in fear, like just thinking about it, just the beginning of it. Like I don't even want to contemplate how that's going to impact the outside economy,
Mm-hmm.
the fiat economy.
Yeah, because
But the impact.
the way I'm looking at it, like think about that change, 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 and I'm sure there's someone in a business right now. They're just like every month where it's a new one, man. What is going on? Because yeah, I get the idea of like wanting to have your own sets of stable coins and stuff. Like I remember back in like Feathercoin days, we used to kind of joke around like color coins. Remember everyone was doing color coins, and it was like you could burn one color coin for three of another, or they were using the burn mechanic for trade value differences and stuff. And it's like, sure, there's some reason behind that, right? But
Mhm.
just cutting out a fee or something that some business is going to be expecting, that's a huge difference. And it's like remember when we saw like Disney go to the digital streaming thing, they saw like huge bust, right? Didn't they get a huge? They didn't see as much flow of money coming in and stuff, and they basically thought it was going to be the opposite. They thought they were going to boom. So my question, I guess, now is, when you're seeing these businesses adopting into cryptocurrency and they can't decide on like what coins to use or which ones to use, is that bad? And what would you recommend for a business wanting to switch to crypto? And before you answer that, what up, curator? One of the guys in the Bitcoin Live show just showed up and he said, "Hey," he wanted to say hi. All right, but now,
Hey,
so talk to me about this.
well, if your business, again, do it natively. These currencies are specifically designed to be used from peer to peer. That's without a trusted third party, not a state, not a bank, not a financial institution, not a money services provider, none of that shit. Okay. If you're going to do it, start fresh and keep your profile as low as possible. Okay. And so basically it's like, say you wanted to use, say, XDN, digital note. Okay, it's a teeny tiny coin, right? It'll take billions of them to do a single transfer. Point being that all you have to do is download the wallet, and now you can receive payments in it. It's not, you got to buy several rack servers, and you got to get an Azure account, and you got to get a system administrator. No, fuck all that. Get a goddamn device, put a wallet on it, okay, and now just use it as an interface to take funds directly for that coin, or use a multi-coin wallet if it's at all possible, or just use multiple native wallets on the device. But the point being is, you can host all of your finance that you do in any cryptocurrency on a basic consumer computer. And the amount of value that you would be dedicating to having any hosts or administrators or any of that other shit fucking with it is going to be astronomically higher than simply downloading a wallet and not even worrying about, do I have to pay my bank like a bunch of maintenance fees like once every month just to maintain my no, 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 no. You just keep the wallet synced. You keep it charged and you keep the wallet synced. Done. There's your infrastructure payment taken care of. But I would do it specifically in another coin. And don't worry about trying to fucking develop your own coin. Look at one that's been out there for about 4 or 5 years. It's not a pump and dump situation. Download the wallet, host a node if you have to, be a miner on the fucking network if it pleases you, and just do it directly like that, because the amount of cost that you'll experience is way lower, and also any kind of regulatory friction. Like, I'm not going to say you should evade taxes, but if that were something that you would at least like to control, have direct control over, is how much you're actually paying in taxes. Um, there isn't any way for them to figure out exactly how many transactions you're getting as any specific service or whatnot. They can track transactions better via cryptocurrencies than any other form of money, and so that's good thing, bad thing. Okay, it's good thing in that if you're ever ripped off and you have to go to court, you can provide the public address for the wallet and the transaction ID and not have to disclose any other information about your finances and whatnot to be able to address that particular fraud or theft as a singular crime. And so that helps you out a lot. But the bad thing is, of course, if you're the entity that was involved in that, they can track it down to the single transaction. And so that, again, good thing, bad thing.
Okay. Well, I do like the way you said it. Just it's elegant and simple. The way you put it. Start simply, and then work your way into it. Right. I know
Absolutely.
that's super way to wash it down, but um, and that's one of the things I do like about when you go into when you talk about your crypto stuff. You have that true native or that native true decentralized thought where it's the yeah, and like I said, it's kind of an old way to think. It's one of the ways I prefer to think, where it's like peer to peer was the intention, right? And I know like before Bitcoin, that's how we did everything. It was always peer to peer. And I'm just glad that you keep on with that. Now, while you were talking, we got a comment, and they were like, "Hey, this person's saying I'm just getting caught up in the Bitcoin white paper myself," and but it does call them transaction fees in the white paper, and they quote out of the white paper, the incentive can be funded with transaction fees.
That was not an explicit reference. Okay, that was an implicit reference, and that, like, Satoshi wasn't saying, transaction fees is what we should call the fees that are associated with our transactions. Like I said, at one point, they were called minor donations, and they weren't even mandatory back then. They were fully optional. That was the other thing that changed with the mimetic drift, is that we went from something that was entirely optional, not even expected, so unexpected that it's considered a donation to do it, okay, to something that you have to pay. And if you can't pay, you can't do a transaction on that network. So again, it's turned it from something that was wholly optional to something that is a mandatory permission.
Okay, and that's really your perspective on that point, right? It should have stayed optional because I know we've talked about it before and stuff, and I think that's really what I've gotten from you the most was like the block size kind of forced the hands to go. We need transactions to have more fees attached, right? Once they did the block size limit. And from the talks that I've gotten, like I kind of wanted to get into that just a little briefly because we kind of had a little bit of it, but because we this is I think the one thing me and you always get into. I'm a big person on 1 megabyte block size, and what is your opinion on block size limitation?
I think there shouldn't be one. I think that if there wasn't one, we probably would have seen the same explosion in telecommunications improvement that we have in mining. Okay, where like all of the concentration has gone into making better and bigger and better ASIC chips. Okay, they can pump more terahashes per second or exahashes per second, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's been the focus. But the fact of the matter is that if we had no block size limit, the the biggest threshold that we bumped into wouldn't be chip performance, okay, where we're competing for the block reward. It would switch to transaction fees, and then the concentration would be fitting as many transactions in the block as possible because that increases the volume of transaction fees that you could be earning a cut of. And the other thing is that it would have pushed the shit out of broadband deployment. Like the whole 5G thing that we saw, that probably wouldn't have even happened, or it would have happened either sooner or later than it did because we would have been pushing other metrics instead.
That's a good point.
But
Like, I do remember 5G actually. Like, I think I was in high school the first time I saw a 10G router. It was a business router. My uncle was working with it. And they used it to transfer communications to mechanics to machines very quickly to get wireless communication that way. And that, was a long time ago. So I know that even today, like they have tower systems that can handle what's considered up to 50G bandwidth or something like that. I forget, like, because the G width thing is a weird situation, but it's the tiny, super small, finite bandwidth, the ones that your window panes can actually block from transmitting. But those are also the ones that are extremely powerful, so they can be extremely precise, right? So we could directly beam information to someone and not go to someone else. Um, and so that's a good point that bring up that it would have just pushed the tech somewhere else. Because I'm a big person. Like, I remember back then when I had a computer just doing a 1 megabyte block just to like break it down to make sure that the ounce was right or something. It would actually take my computer minutes to break that down. And now my phone takes less time to break that down than it takes to pull it up on my screen to show me the text. You know what I mean? Like, it's so fast. And so now I do wonder more and more if we went to more of like a liquid block system where it's like, okay, we know we do an average of so many blocks per year, so we just allow up to an X percentage higher per year. And then if you want to have a block that's going to be larger than one block, it could be up to that percentage higher. Then another block down the line would just end up being smaller when there's less transactions. You know what I mean? Well, they do the, I think some other people call it like um, expandable block sizes where you can actually make it bigger temporarily if you know that the next time that you get a block, it's going to have to be shorter and stuff
okay,
like that.
I think maintaining the block size limit as any kind of constraint is going to go away. And but the thing is this: it's going to go away due to one of two things, and we've already passed one, so it's going to happen on the other. Is that like the amount of money going through the network at any one time is a big governor of how much money you make as a miner. All right. And so the more money that's transferring, the higher percentage, I mean, the higher amount of money you could be making from transaction fees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in the not so distant future, Bitcoin only has two more halvings before the block reward goes under one Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Okay. And once that happens, all of this industrial scale bit farm mining, that's all going away. Okay, because number one, the competition will be so high at that point, they'll be using lasers from outer space to take one another out. I mean, you'll be able to find the heat signature, the mining, the hash farm, and then just be zapping one another from space because the competition for the transaction fees will be that high. Okay,
Okay.
but the other thing is this: that because the block reward itself is going to get that much smaller, either each Bitcoin has to be worth like $10 million a piece, or you have to be able to make shit tons of transaction fees. Okay, and so like I think that over the longer term, we're going to see industrial scale mining just go away. All right. I mean, you have to be doing like billions and billions of dollars worth of transaction fees every 10 minutes to make that kind of model worth it. Well, we're not there yet. And the fact that we have altcoins is going to slow that down. But I think we're already starting to see this happen with ordinals, where the incentive to get yours done now is that much higher, is so much higher that the miners will actually make bigger blocks just to include the transaction. Okay, and I think that that's going to increase over time, not decrease. Where we're going to run into this thing where people are wanting to do things like ordinals or just count coffee transactions, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
miners are going to be looking at this mountain of 330,000 transactions and going, we should just include that in the next block and flush the fucking thing out. And then after that it's going to be, that number of transactions will stack up behind it, and they'll be looking at it again going, well, are we going to continue to deal with this barrier and keep delaying these people and watching them go to other currencies, because that is a threat that Bitcoin constantly has to deal with. They keep talking about Bitcoin dominance. That's what's happening, is that the people are looking at 10, 20, $30 transaction fees, and they're saying, well, gosh, if I'd have done this transaction on Doge, it would have been half a penny. Why am I taking this ass rape of $30 a transaction fee just to do it in Bitcoin? You could do it in like Doge wrapped Bitcoin and get the fucking thing done now.
Yeah, good point. Okay. I I'm not gonna disagree. I think that altcoins is a huge benefit for Bitcoin specifically. Like I know we've had that conversation many times. I'm a big believer in altcoins is the second layer for other coins basically. But bro, we are getting near the end of today. I forget how insightful you really are. We gotta get in and do those talks more often. I gotta get your VR and finish too. Um, Bro, so I really appreciate you coming in. Now, before we go, I want to give you a chance to give a spill and chill of where we can find you, because I know you already mentioned it, but go ahead and mention it again.
All right. Well, I'm on Twitter. I think my two accounts right now that are active is the D Shift and also DJ Erock 2323 on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, Frank Dashwood. You can find me on Getter. You can find me on Gab. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place. And every Tuesday and Thursday, I do a show called the D Shift, and we started at 2 p.m. and run it to 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I play a lot of metal, most of which you probably never heard, um, and I talk about the coins. And lately we've been chewing a lot on SEC, but that's just because that's what's active right now.
That's what's up. Yeah, it is the hot topic, right? Again, I really appreciate you showing up and stopping in for us. We're gonna go
Pleasure.
ahead and end today. We're gonna drop in the outro video. Now, last week when I tried to do the outro video, it just froze on me. So let's see what happens this time.
Good deal, man. It's been great talking to you, man.
Absolutely, bro. So, um, and if you'll hang on for just after the outro ends,
Yeah.
I'll have a chat with you after the line is over. I just absolutely lost my outro video. Hold on, where did it go? Let's see if I can. I don't know. It's like this OBS has been definitely fun with me. Like your video on screen keeps moving around too. All right, all right. I think I got it.